Eli's mom, Mrs. Carter, though she always said, "Just call me Laura," lived 2 blocks from campus, close enough that her house became a hangout spot whenever our apartment's Wi-Fi crashed. She made good coffee, too, the real kind, from beans she ground herself. That smell stayed with me longer than I'll admit. It was a Thursday afternoon, gray and unhurried. I'd stopped by to drop off Eli's notebook. He'd left it after class. The rain had already started, soft but steady, and by the time she opened the door, I was dripping from the short walk. "Come in, you'll ruin that hoodie," she said, stepping aside. She was still in her work clothes, black slacks, a pale sweater, a faint scent of citrus and something like cedar. Her hair was damp near the ends, like she'd only half-dried it before rushing somewhere. I followed her into the kitchen, the sound of the kettle filling the silence. "Eli mentioned you had a late studio night," she said, glancing over her shoulder. "Yeah. I think I'm allergic to sleep at this point." She smiled, small, distracted, the kind that doesn't try to impress. "I remember those nights. Coffee's still the cure, right?" I laughed, but she was already turning away, reaching for mugs. There was something in how she moved, calm, efficient, but with that edge of weariness people carry when they've had to hold themselves together too long. I noticed her fingers trembled slightly when she poured the coffee, just enough for me to look away so she wouldn't notice I noticed. We sat at the counter. Steam curled between us. "So," she said, "you and Eli are still doing that architecture project?" "Trying to. He's better with designs. I'm just pretending to keep up." She tilted her head, eyes narrowing, not unkindly. "You sell yourself short a lot, don't you?" I didn't know what to say to that. So I smiled instead, folding the paper napkin she'd slid toward me into smaller and smaller squares. She watched for a second, then laughed softly. "You do that when you're nervous." "Do what?" "Fold things. You used to do it last summer too." "I notice things." Her words hung there, "I notice things." She took a sip of coffee, eyes drifting toward the window, the rain streaking down the glass. There was nothing flirtatious about it. It was just honest. But that honesty did something to me. For a while, neither of us spoke. The kettle ticked as it cooled, and somewhere in the next room, a clock hummed faintly. The silence wasn't uncomfortable, just too aware of itself. "I should get going," I said, though neither of us moved. She looked at me, then really looked. The kind of look that finds a version of you didn't know was visible. "Tell Eli I'll be late for dinner," she said quietly. "And, thank you for coming by." Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky still held that heavy blue that never quite lets go of the day. I stood under her porch light, phone buzzing in my pocket, a text from Eli, "Hey, can you grab my sketchbook from Mom's if you haven't already? She said you were there." I typed, "Yeah, just left," but didn't hit send right away. I stared at the half-written message, thumb hovering. Through the window, I could see her silhouette moving around the kitchen, slow, deliberate, like she was thinking too much about something she'd said or hadn't said. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Eli. It was her. "You forgot your umbrella." I smiled, even though I hadn't. And for reasons I couldn't name, I didn't text back. A week passed before I saw her again. Eli had gone on a weekend trip with his girlfriend, and I'd promised to water his mom's plants while he was away. It sounded harmless enough. Simple. Routine. The key scraped softly in the lock when I let myself in. The air smelled faintly of lemon and old paper, the way her house always did. A mug sat on the counter, half-rinsed, as if she'd been in a hurry that morning. "I didn't expect her to be home." "Didn't think you'd actually do it," she said, appearing in the doorway, hair tied loosely back. "Most people say they'll water the plants and forget." I laughed, awkwardly. "I'm good at following instructions." She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, watching me pour water into the pot of ivy on the windowsill. "That's not what I remember from when you and Eli were younger. That was different. I was 16. Thought rules were optional." Her smile came slowly. "You still do, I think." The way she said it wasn't teasing. It was something else, like she was remembering me at that age, all restless energy and unearned confidence. I wondered if she'd always looked at me that way, even a little. We ended up sitting in the living room, mugs of tea between us. The TV was on mute, showing a cooking show neither of us were watching. She sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. You know, when Eli's father left, I stopped making tea. Switched to coffee because it felt sharper. Like I didn't have time for soft things anymore. I didn't know what to say. She'd never mentioned him before. Sorry, she added, almost laughing. That was heavier than I meant. No, it's okay, I said. I get it. She looked at me then, eyes narrowing slightly. Do you? I wanted to say yes. But what did I know about loss that big? About waking up to the echo of someone who used to be there? Still, I felt it, the quiet weight behind her words, the kind that lingers long after it's spoken. The silence stretched again, but it wasn't empty. Just fragile. You remind me of him sometimes, she said softly. Not in looks. Just how you notice things and don't say them. I looked down at my hands. Is that a good thing? She hesitated. It used to be. I wanted to ask what changed, but her phone buzzed on the coffee table, Eli's name lighting up the screen. She didn't pick it up. Just stared at it until it stopped ringing. Outside, the rain had started again, faint against the windows. I watched a droplet roll slowly down the glass, and before I could stop myself, I reached over and brushed a crumb off her sleeve. A nothing gesture. Automatic. But her arm stilled. Our eyes met. And for a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. Then she smiled faintly, almost apologetically. You missed a spot, she said. I didn't look. I just nodded, pretending not to understand what she meant. But I did. We both did. The thing about distance is it only works if both people keep it. I told myself I'd stay away. A week, maybe 2. Focus on finals. Forget the sound of her voice when she said my name. But then she texted. Could you help me carry a box up from the basement? It's heavy. I stared at the message too long. Wrote sure, deleted it, then sent it anyway. When I got there, the house felt quieter than usual. No music, no kettle, no TV. Just the steady hum of the refrigerator and the sound of her slippers on the floor. She led me down to the basement, flicking on a weak bulb. It's just that one, she said, pointing to a box marked old photos. I lifted it easily, but she stayed close anyway, as if she didn't trust me not to drop it. The air smelled of dust and detergent. When I turned to carry it up, she brushed past me, her hand grazing my back for balance. It shouldn't have meant anything. It did. At the top of the stairs, she reached to steady the box, her fingers catching mine for a moment too long. We both froze. Thanks, I said, my voice too quiet. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're always polite when you shouldn't be. What's that mean? It means you make it hard to stay sensible. The words slipped out like she hadn't meant to say them. Or maybe she had. I couldn't tell. We set the box on the dining table. The cardboard was soft at the corners, and when she opened it, old photographs spilled out, her, Eli as a kid, a man with his arm around her shoulders. She picked one up. He took this the year before he left, she murmured. I nodded, not knowing what to say. She smiled faintly. You probably think I'm pathetic. Holding on to old things. I don't, I said. I think, sometimes people leave, and the things they touch stay warmer longer than they should. She looked at me then. Long, searching. Like she was trying to decide if I understood more than I should. I did. The moment stretched. Her hand rested near mine on the table, not quite touching. The light caught the edge of her wedding ring, still there, though faintly loose on her finger. Then, from the hallway, a knock. Sharp. Quick. Mom? Eli's voice again. She stepped back fast, like she'd been burned. He wasn't supposed to be home yet, she whispered. My pulse jumped. I grabbed my bag, nearly knocking the chair over. When Eli walked in, she was already rearranging the photos, smiling too brightly. We were just sorting old stuff, she said. He nodded, distracted, scrolling his phone. I mumbled a goodbye and stepped toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I heard her behind me, soft, almost swallowed by the hum of the fridge. Wait. I turned. Her eyes flicked to the door, then to me. If I asked you to stay, would you? I didn't answer. Didn't have to. The air between us said everything and stopped just short of saying too much. I saw her again on a Sunday evening, one of those spring days that couldn't decide between warm and cold. The light was fading, and the sky looked like it was trying too hard to hold on to color. She was sitting on a park bench, a paperback in her lap, unread. I almost walked past. Almost. She noticed me before I could decide. You look like you're avoiding someone, she said. Maybe I am. She smiled faintly. Eli? I shook my head. You. That got a real laugh. The kind that came out soft and short, but stayed a while after. That's fair, she said. I've been avoiding me too. I sat beside her. The wooden bench creaked under the shift. A jogger passed. A dog barked in the distance. The kind of ordinary background noise that made silence between two people even louder. She glanced at me. Eli says you might move out soon. Thinking about it, I said. Found a cheaper place closer to campus. That's good, she said quickly, too quickly. Then quieter, that's good. We didn't talk for a long minute. She ran her thumb along the book's edge. I watched the motion, how deliberate it was, how steady her hands seemed until they weren't. Laura, I said, before I could stop myself. She flinched slightly at her name on my tongue. Looked at me, really looked. This is wrong, she whispered. I didn't say it wasn't. But you're thinking it isn't, she said. You're too young to know how wrong can follow you. How it stains everything after. Her voice cracked then, barely. I could tell she'd rehearsed that line before, maybe in her head, maybe to herself when she was alone. I don't want to ruin anything, I said. You wouldn't. I would. We sat in the weight of that. The quiet stretched so thin it started to tremble. Then she exhaled, almost laughing at herself. You know, when your age looks at mine, it sees something simpler. Something safe. Like a story that can be paused whenever it hurts too much. I don't see you that way. Then how? I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just looked at her, the way the wind caught a strand of hair near her cheek, the faint tiredness around her eyes. She sighed. Eli's bringing someone home next week. His girlfriend. Oh. She's nice. Too nice, maybe. Makes me feel older. You're not old. Don't, she said softly. Don't make it harder to pretend. Her voice trembled. For the first time, she wasn't composed, wasn't measured. Just human. I turned toward her, and for a heartbeat we were too close. Close enough to see the flecks of gold in her eyes, the faint line of worry above her brow. She didn't move. Neither did I. Then, her phone buzzed. A text from Eli lit the screen. We both looked down at it. And that tiny flash of light was enough to pull us back to where we shouldn't have left. Her hand lingered near mine. She whispered, one of us has to stop. But neither of us did. Not yet. For 3 weeks, I didn't see her. No texts. No calls. Not even a passing glimpse through the window when I walked by her house. It was as if she'd quietly erased herself from every corner I knew to look in. Eli said she was visiting family. Ohio, maybe. He didn't sound sure. He never noticed the shift, the empty space where she used to exist. I tried to convince myself it was better this way. I even started seeing someone, a girl from my studio class. She talked too fast, laughed too easily. And still, every time her phone buzzed, I wished it was hers. But it wasn't. Until it was. 3 words. Out of nowhere. Can we talk? I stared at the message for a full minute before typing when? And erasing it. Twice. Then just sent sure. She didn't reply. The next evening, I found her sitting on her porch, a blanket around her shoulders, a mug in hand. The porch light was dim, the same soft yellow that had started all this. "Didn't think you'd come," she said. I almost didn't. Good instinct. Her tone was off, distant, almost brittle. The air felt colder than it was. "You left," I said finally. No goodbye, no explanation. "I needed to remember who I was before all this," she said, eyes fixed on the street. "Before you started showing up with that look like you were waiting for me to say something I shouldn't." I almost laughed. "You make it sound like I'm the problem." She looked at me then. "You're not. That's the problem." The silence after that was thick, full of unsaid things neither of us trusted enough to name. "I saw him," she said suddenly. "Who?" "My ex-husband. He's back in town. Wants to fix things. For Eli, mostly." It hit harder than I expected. The kind of hit that doesn't bruise, but leaves you winded anyway. I tried to sound casual. "And, you're thinking about it?" She didn't answer right away. "I don't know. It's strange. He still has that look, like he knows me. Like I owe him a version of myself I can't be anymore." "And me?" Her hand tightened around the mug. "You make me feel seen. But not steady. There's a difference." It stung more than it should have. A car passed, headlights sweeping across her face, catching the tired curve of her mouth. She looked older in that moment, not because of age, but because of everything she was trying to hold in. "You should go," she said softly. "Before Eli comes home." I wanted to argue. To ask her what she really wanted. But she was already standing, retreating behind that polite half-smile that meant the door was closing, whether I liked it or not. When I got home, I drafted a message: "You can't just vanish again." I watched the cursor blink at the end of the sentence. Then deleted it. For the first time, I didn't hit send. And somehow, that felt like the most honest thing I'd done. It was late. Nearly midnight. The kind of hour where everything feels softer, more honest, even things that shouldn't. I hadn't planned on going back to her house. My feet just went there. The street lights were dim, the rain thin and tired. Her porch light was off this time. For a second, I thought she wasn't home. Then the door opened. "Of course it's you," she said, voice low, half a sigh, half something else. "I was hoping you'd have better sense than me." I didn't step inside yet. Just stood there, dripping on her mat, unsure if crossing that line again would undo everything we'd been pretending to protect. She looked smaller than I remembered. Wrapped in an old sweatshirt, her hair undone, eyes a little red. "I thought you said it was better this way," I said. "I did. So what changed?" She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You didn't stop showing up in my head." Something in me broke thin, quietly, like glass under a towel. I stepped in. The house smelled like rain and old tea. The clock above the stove ticked too loud. "I saw your ex," I said finally. "Last week. At the store. He looked fine." She gave a dry laugh. "He always does. That's his gift. He leaves people wrecked and somehow looks untouched." Her voice trembled. Not from sadness, exactly, from exhaustion. "You going back to him?" "No," she said it fast. "He doesn't want me. He wants the idea of me. And I'm tired of being someone's idea." I nodded slowly, my hand brushing the edge of the counter. She noticed. Always did. Then she said, almost whispering, "And you make me forget I'm supposed to be careful." The words hung there, fragile, almost afraid of themselves. I took a step closer. "What if I don't want you to be careful?" Her eyes lifted. "Then one of us gets hurt. Probably me. Probably both." For a moment, we stood in that thin space between choices, the kind that change everything, or nothing. Her hand was resting on the counter, inches from mine. She looked down at it, then back up. "Do you ever wonder," she said softly, "how different this would feel if I'd met you at the right time?" "All the time." She smiled then, small, sad, but real. We both knew what came next. Or what didn't. She reached out, fingers brushing my sleeve, then falling away. "You should go," she whispered. "While this still means something good." I wanted to argue. To say I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. But the truth sat heavy in my throat, unmoving. So instead, I nodded. At the door, she said quietly, "One kiss won't hurt, right?" I turned back. Met her eyes. "Or maybe it will." She smiled. A soft, breaking kind of smile. And this time, we both knew what not to do. So we didn't. Just stood there, two people who had already said enough. And somehow, that was the closest we ever got. It's been 6 months since that night. The rain comes earlier now, soft, patient. The kind that lingers on window panes like it doesn't want to leave. I started writing more. Turns out, silence has a way of becoming a friend if you let it. The first time we met again, really met, it wasn't planned. Just one of those coincidences that don't feel accidental. I was walking past the park where we used to sit on that old wooden bench. She was already there, cup in hand, looking at the sky like it was asking her something. "You still drink that bitter coffee?" I asked. She smiled. "You still hate it?" "Always." The air felt easy between us, like nothing had broken, only rearranged. We talked about ordinary things. The weather. Her son. My new job. The kind of talk people have when they've already said everything that mattered. But then she said, quietly, "I kept the mug you used. The one you complained leaked." I laughed, the sound startling us both. "You still collect broken things?" "Only the ones that feel like they're still trying." That one hit harder than it should have. We sat there for a while, no confessions, no apologies. Just the sound of the city moving around us, and the faint hum of what we'd almost been. And then, without thinking, I reached for her hand. Not in the way I used to want to. Not hungry or trembling. Just steady. Familiar. She didn't pull away this time. Her fingers were warm, faintly paint-stained. "You still overthink everything," she said softly. "And you still notice." We stayed like that until her coffee went cold. Until the park lights flickered on. Until time, for a moment, didn't matter. Later, when we said goodbye, there wasn't a promise, just a look that said we made it through. Now, some mornings, I'll see her walking ahead of me, wind catching her hair. Sometimes she turns, sometimes she doesn't. But it's enough. We exist in the same world again, not as what we were, but as what we became because of it. And every time the clock hits 8:47, I make tea, not coffee. Because that's what she taught me, how to find warmth, even after letting go.